Oh, Gene Simmons with a new tweet. Oh, Bitcoin. Okay. What's Bitcoin? I should probably buy that. I mean, it's going to the moon, right? Lindsay Lohan says it's going to the moon. Gene Simmons does. I'll probably buy some Dogecoin as well. Snoop Dogg's talking about that. I mean, I've been seeing Bitcoin all over the news recently. Maybe I should just go ahead and buy it. Yep. You know, actually, I wanted to make this video for you guys just to give a good explanation as to what Bitcoin really is. Before you just go ahead and dive into it and buy it, I think it's a really good idea to have a good understanding of exactly what Bitcoin is. I know when you look online right now, it can be sort of overwhelming. You go on Coinbase, you go on CoinMarketCap, thousands of different cryptocurrencies, and you really just kind of feel overwhelmed. You go into one, it turns into a rabbit hole, and that goes into different rabbit holes, and then you kind of feel lost at the end of it. I've been there. It's tough. So in this video, my goal is that I just want to break down, starting with Bitcoin. We're going to break down cryptocurrency, blockchain, but I want to start with Bitcoin for you guys, just to have a good understanding as to what it is, why it was created. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So Bitcoin was created back in 2009 by Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto. And no one actually knows who he is, funny enough. It could be a person, it could be a group of people. I mean, you've actually had a lot of people that have come forth and said that they are Mr. Satoshi, but with no evidence whatsoever. So yeah, no one actually knows who created Bitcoin. Why does this matter? Why does Bitcoin matter? You've seen everyone talk about it recently. Well, Bitcoin was actually created with an intention behind it to solve a lot of the problems that the US dollar and other fiat currencies have right now. It's not just some other random currency thrown out there, and it's not just a buzzword. There actually is a lot of value behind Bitcoin, and that's what I want to get into with you guys today. So what problems does Bitcoin solve exactly? Well, one of them is inflation. With Bitcoin, there are only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be in existence. So you can't print more, you can't take out any of them, only 21 million, that's it. That's all you get. And right now there's about 18.6 million that are currently circulating throughout the marketplace, being traded between people, or even lost on wallets and stuff like that, but I won't get into that. I'm sure that there's some pretty upset people right now that have Bitcoin on some random hard drive or USB drive that they lost or that they can't get access to. But anyways, I feel sorry for those people. Right, inflation is a problem that we've been seeing with the US dollar for an extended period of time. Something that doesn't go away, it's never gonna go away. And just to give you guys an example with the US dollar, if I wanted to have the same purchasing power back in the year 2000, let's say the year 2000, having $100,000, how much would I need to make today to be able to have that same buying power that $100,000 had back in the year 2000? Well, today I would need to make about $151,000 today to have the same. That's a 51% difference. That's pretty nuts, and that's just an average, by the way. When you look at this list right here, you'll see that it actually varies by city that you live in. San Diego, 3.92% inflation per year over the last 21 years. That's where I live, and it's been tough. That's why we don't have houses here. Yeah, nope, it's just not possible. So yeah, that's the thing, is like when you look at this, you'll see that throughout the country, people have been suffering much worse from inflation. So when you just hold on to cash over the last 20 years, you're losing a tremendous amount of buying power as to what it is that you can actually get with that. And unfortunately, that problem's not going away. And the unfortunate thing about inflation existing is that our education system as it stands right now, when you're in high school, you don't really get taught about inflation. You don't get taught about taxes. You don't get taught about managing your personal budget. You don't really know anything about finances whatsoever. You are just thrown into the abyss, into the world, figure it out on your own, and it's almost like the system kind of sets you up to fail. And maybe that's why the wage gap just keeps getting worse and worse. And maybe because of the inflation just keeps going up, and we have a terrible education system that's just almost like designed to keep people at the bottom in a sense. That's why Bitcoin, a lot of people are wanting to flock to that instead as far as a store of value, because there's actually scarcity to it. I mean, even just last year, the Federal Reserve printed $9 trillion and added that into the economy, onto their balance sheet. 9 trillion. That's a lot. That's 22%, oh, by the way, of the overall supply of money. We are going to be seeing the effects of that over the coming years, and we've already seen a recovery in Wall Street, and have not seen a recovery with the working class. So that gap between the top and the bottom, it's starting to get worse, and that's what you're seeing. People are wanting a different solution. I mean, just imagine you had 10 ultra rare Pokemon cards. You got some holographic Charizards, you got Blastoise, you got the OG Pikachu. Oh man, first edition? Well, okay, now the manufacturer just decides to print 9 trillion more of them. They're probably not really worth anything at this point. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. Of course, the Federal Reserve did this for a reason. They did it to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. However, we are going to see the effects of this over the coming years, and how this is going to affect the economy, and it's going to affect the citizens, throughout the world. And speaking of scarcity, there's not only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist, but also every 4 years, the rate at which new Bitcoin is released into the existing supply, it actually gets cut in half. So it has like a half-life. Every 4 years, it slows down again every 4 years. And that creates scarcity to the asset. So that is a much better long-term storehold of wealth. And we've seen that over the last 10 years. I mean, we've seen Bitcoin go from less than $10 all the way to $50,000 almost right now. So as you can see, probably a much better long-term storehold of wealth from what we can see right now. Another problem that we face right now with fiat currency is what's known as salability. And that's the ability to transact a medium of exchange over time, space, and scales. Essentially, to be able to send it internationally, how quickly you can send that money, and then also the divisibility of that money or product or whatever it is that you are transacting with another person. And one of these issues with salability in particular is with international exchange of wealth. If I want to send money to someone who's over in Japan right now, let's just say I have a brother. His name is Jimmy. He's studying over in Japan. I want to send him $100, right? If I want to send him $100, I have to go through a wire transfer process with my bank. My bank says, all right, that's going to take us about 4 days to be able to send that money. I'm like, okay, I guess that's all right. Yeah, not only is it going to take 4 days, but we're actually going to charge you about $35 a fee just to be able to send that money. And I'm like, geez, that's 35%. Okay, well, I mean, I guess I really need to get Jimmy that money though, so sure. Oh yeah, and then also Jimmy's going to have to pay a fee when he receives the money. That's going to be about another $20 or so. Okay, so you're saying that I have to spend $155 so that he receives 100? Yeah, pretty much. All right, well, that seems like kind of a problem. And then when that money actually does get to Jimmy, Jimmy has to go ahead and exchange that money because Japan doesn't use the US dollar. So now Jimmy needs to go to a bank. He needs to go ahead and exchange that money and pay a fee to go ahead and do that. So as you can see, this is a pretty inefficient process, and it's also kind of a costly process too. But let's say I have Bitcoin, right? If I want to send Jimmy Bitcoin, I want to send him $100 worth of Bitcoin, I pay a nominal, very minuscule fee to be able to send it to him. And he can get that within 10 minutes. Depends on how congested the network is, but typically it's going to get there in anywhere between 10 minutes to 60 minutes. And the thing is that as the infrastructure for Bitcoin continues to grow, meaning as more miners contribute to the Bitcoin blockchain, it is only going to improve and get better over time as more people use it. Not only can you send your transactions faster than a bank with Bitcoin, but also if Jimmy wants to go ahead and convert that to yen, he would pay a much lesser fee to be able to do that than if he was to go to a currency exchange. And the thing is as the world continues to adopt Bitcoin more and more, it's going to be very normal for any type of vendor to go ahead and just accept Bitcoin, right? So as you travel throughout the world and everyone accepts Bitcoin, that is sort of the ideal society of what we're looking at doing right now. And we can already see that we're making progress right now with companies like PayPal and Square that are adding the ability to transact with Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin through their platforms. And we're going to be seeing that added to Venmo later on this year as well, which is pretty awesome. And as Bitcoin continues to grow and develop over the next several years, we're going to see transaction fees getting lower and transaction times becoming faster. And as one of my favorite Bitcoin enthusiasts, Andreas Antonopoulos, he gives the analogy of when cars were first coming out back in the day. You know, you had a lot of people driving these first cars when there were no roads, there was no infrastructure at all for cars. And then you had people with the horses going around and they're like, ha, idiots, that's a trend. That no one's gonna adopt that. Why would anyone get a car? You're just gonna get stuck in a hole in the ground. I could take my horse, I could take it all over the place. Well, now that we've seen infrastructure develop for cars, people aren't exactly traveling around on horses at the moment. And the same is going to happen for Bitcoin. As the infrastructure continues to grow, as more people adopt it, as more companies try to build around it, we are going to create an ecosystem that is much longer lasting for Bitcoin rather than the US dollar or any other fiat currencies right now. And well guys, that's part one for this series. I don't want to overwhelm you guys with too much information, but this is just a starting point as far as the value that really Bitcoin brings to the table and the problems that it solves. And that we can get into decentralization. We're going to get into a lot of other facets and value points of Bitcoin in the coming videos. Really glad you guys stuck around, watched the whole video. I hope you learned a lot. If you did, just make sure you like the video, that you subscribe, you tick that little bell, and then you tell your friends, and they're like, oh man, Christian's awesome, he's so cool, amazing video, #1. Thank you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day.